Strange, Weird, and Creepy Tales, written by Maria Cisneros Toth. Today's creepy tale, The Witch's House. Isabel was new to Foster Hills. She hadn't made many friends, so when Kayla invited her during recess to trick or treat on Friday night, she accepted the invitation. On Halloween night, after they filled their plastic pumpkins with candy loot, they took a shortcut home along a twisty road scattered with piles of dead leaves. "I really scored at the last house." Kayla pointed the flashlight her mother gave her to help light the way. "Did you see the handful of Tootsie Pops that nice lady gave me?" "Yeah, they're my favorites." Isabel swung her orange bucket at her side. Kayla's baggy clown pants rustled as she followed the beam of light up the street. "If you want, I'll show you where the witch lives. We have to walk past her house to get to mine anyhow." Isabel spit her glow-in-the-dark vampire fangs into her hand and stuck them into her jeans pocket. "Okay, but let's hurry so we can do our candy swap." "It's not much farther." Kayla's funny red shoes flopped through the layers of fallen leaves. "There it is." She stopped and stared at an old house hunched beneath a werewolf moon. Standing next to her friend, Isabel's black opera cape that belonged to her great-great-grandfather flapped in the cool autumn breeze. "That house is so creepy," Kayla said, her teeth chattering. Isabel shrugged. "Looks like a regular house to me." The shutters hanging off their hinges banged against the wall. Above the slanting roof, threatening clouds gathered and clung to the goblin night sky. A devilish wind stirred, and the leaves drifted and tumbled through the air. Kayla kept staring at the house. "Ever since I was in kindergarten, some of the other kids on the playground talked about the witch who lives there. One day I saw her." "You did? What'd you do?" "I ran and didn't look back. I was too scared." "Just because the house looks run down and spooky doesn't mean a witch lives there. Maybe whoever lives there can't afford to fix it up." With her black cape rippling behind her, Isabel marched toward the splintered fence. "Are you crazy?" Kayla caught up with Isabel, catching a Tootsie Pop as it slipped over the lip of her plastic pumpkin. Then she grabbed Isabel by the arm. She pulled her close and whispered, "There she is, the old crone." "I don't see anyone." "Where?" Isabel asked. Kayla pointed toward the big window. "See her shadow on the curtain?" Looking past the flower beds of withered and thorny rose bushes, Isabel said, "No, but I see a black cat sitting on the windowsill." "I heard witches can turn themselves into black cats," Kayla said in a low voice. In the weed-choked yard, the wind howled, lifting dead leaves off the ground like a small tornado. Kayla's polka-dotted pants ballooned. She clung to Isabel as the funnel bounced up and down. Then the wind calmed and the leaves settled back on the ground. "Look," Isabel said, "the cat's gone." "The witch is waiting for us to ring the doorbell and shout trick-or-treat." Kayla slowly backed away. "Then what happens?" "She coaxes trick-or-treaters inside so she can steal and eat all of their treats. And I'm not giving up this candy. Halloween comes once a year. I worked hard tonight to get my stash." "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of." Isabel straightened the collar of her opera cape. "I'm going to prove to you there's no witch living in that house." "What are you going to do?" Kayla asked. Leaving her friend behind, Isabel marched forward and pushed the crooked gate. The bottom scraped against the ground and got stuck on clumps of dry grass. She spun on her heel and headed back toward Kayla. "Better hold on to this for me." She shoved her plastic jack-o'-lantern into Kayla's trembly hands. "Just in case. I'm wrong." "Come on, I'm scared. Let's go to my house. We can swap Tootsie Pops for Skittles, okay?" Isabel turned sideways and squeezed through the narrow opening of the gate and crept toward the creepy house. "Don't eat any of my candy," she warned. "I'll know if you do." One by one, she climbed the broken and rotting steps. On the porch, she turned and smiled at Kayla, still trembling on the other side of the fence. As Isabel reached up to knock on the door, a shadow flew at her. "Meow!" She laughed at herself. She never admitted to Kayla, but the cat almost made her pee her pants. Isabel gave the door 3 hard knocks. From the other side came soft shuffling footsteps and the slow snick of a lock. Then a stream of light escaped the narrow crack of the doorframe, and a frail hand wrapped around the edge of the door. "Who is it?" A grandmotherly woman peered around the corner. "Oh, it's you, dear. Don't you look adorable in your grandfather's cape? Come in." Isabel hugged the woman's soft middle. "Good to see you, Granny Ma. I've got a new friend." She sniffed her grandmother's hand-sewn apron, loving the way she smelled of baked gingerbread. "Her name is Kayla, and she's waiting outside." "Invite her in," Granny Ma said. You know I always enjoy meeting your friends." Isabel poked her head out the front door and shouted for Kayla to join her in the house. "No way!" Kayla yelled from the other side of the fence. "I promise, she's not a witch. She's just a sweet old lady. She's my granny-ma." "Your grandma?" Clutching both plastic pumpkins and awkwardly holding onto her flashlight, Kayla squeezed through the opening in the gate and wandered through the weedy yard, edged up the steps and into the house she had been scared to death of for most of her life. "See," Isabel laughed, "a witch doesn't live here." "Welcome, welcome," said Granny Ma. "Come into the parlor and sit a spell. I'll be right back with some cake." Kayla punched Isabel's arm. "Why didn't you tell me this was your grandma's house?" "That's why we moved to Foster Hills, so we could live closer to Granny Ma. She's getting old and needs our help." "But you let me go on and on about the witch, and I'm so embarrassed. I was just having some fun. Besides, you wouldn't have believed me if I told you the truth. Anyhow, she makes the best cake you'll ever taste." The old woman brought out a tray of piping hot apple cider and warm gingerbread with dollops of whipped cream. "Yum!" Kayla's eyes opened wide. "It smells so good." The black cat they had seen in the window slunk across the living room, arched its back, and clawed at a braided rug near the cozy fireplace. Isabel walked over and picked up the slinky cat. "Meet Cat. She's almost 100 years old." "100 years old? I'm not falling for that one." Kayla set down the pumpkin containers on the couch as Isabel's grandma served dessert. She looked at the sweet old woman. "I'm sorry I thought you were a witch, but all the kids at school said. Tell me now, do the children really believe I'm a witch like in Hansel and Gretel?" Kayla took her fork and sliced into the cake. "They do." "Well, for goodness sakes!" Grandma cackled with delight. "Here, have another slice, dearie. There's plenty more. I've got another loaf in the oven." "No, thank you. Isabel and I are on our way to my house to do a candy swap." "Isn't that nice?" She settled into a rocker. The floorboards creaked beneath her as the old woman rocked back and forth with Cat curled on her lap. Sitting on a long wooden chest, Isabel washed down the last bite of cake with the rest of her cider. "Granny Ma," she set her cup on the bench beside her, "I'm still thirsty, and I'm feeling a little dizzy." "Oh, dear, dear, you are looking pale." Granny Ma stroked Cat's fur. She leaned forward and studied Kayla. "But your cheeks, my dear, have such a delicious rosy glow." "Delicious?" Kayla squirmed on the couch cushion as Isabel's grandmother stared at her as though she was in some sort of weird trance. "Is something the matter?" Kayla asked. Without saying a word, Isabel rose from her chair and stared at her fidgety friend. Cat slipped off the old woman's lap as Grandma got up and slowly moved toward Kayla. Kayla let out a stuttering and frightened whimper. The dessert plate on her lap fell as she leapt up and darted for the door. She twisted the deadbolt. It wouldn't budge. She spun around. "I think there's something wrong with the lock." "Nothing wrong with it, dear," Grandma said softly. The old woman, Isabel, and Cat inched closer and closer. Trapped, Kayla pressed her back against the closed door. "Is this a Halloween prank? Why are you all staring at me like that? Isabel, stop it!" Isabel flipped her black cape over her shoulder. "I'm so thirsty, Granny Ma." She put on her plastic glow-in-the-dark fangs. "Tisk, tisk! No matter how hard we try, cider just doesn't seem to quench a young vampire's thirst the way it does for you mortals." "Vampire?" Kayla looked at Isabel in horror. "But those fangs aren't even real." "You're right. I don't have my permanent fangs yet, but Granny Ma does, and it's late, and I'm thirsty. Very thirsty. Meow! Cat wants a drink too." Kayla screamed as the sweet-looking old lady lunged toward her neck with a mouthful of razor-like fangs. The woman who smelled of gingerbread hissed, and Kayla slumped to the floor. Grandma turned to Isabel. "2 straws, dear?" "Yes, please." The grandmotherly woman whipped 2 bendy straws out of her apron pocket and stabbed them into the puncture wounds in Kayla's neck. Isabel slurped, slurped, and slurped until she satisfied her thirst. Cat lapped from a small puddle of blood and licked his paws. Grandma shuffled back to the living room and picked up Kayla's dish that had fallen onto the carpet and gathered the plastic pumpkins. She giggled. "For goodness sakes, did she really think I was a witch?" The Witch's House is one of 13 strange, weird, and creepy tales written by Maria Cisneros Toth, Available on Amazon as an ebook and paperback. Thanks for watching, and scary dreams!